Ahoo! Yes, can we chash me hello? All right, so this is the third video, Science of Tradition. Um, we're going to talk about the consciousness of light in this one. We're going to go into Michelson and Morley, the vacuum DNA phantom effect, and what do those mean as far as temple farming and science or tradition and all of those and those relationships. All right, so we look at Michelson and Morley experiment. All right, anybody can Google the Michelson and Morley experiment, and it'll say that it was a failure. Right, so it's important to say, well, what is it that they failed at? What was the experiment about? And what the Michelson and Morley experiment, double slit experiment, is it a pulse, is it a wave? Was an experiment to determine if there was what they called luminiferous ether or ether. All right, it was a postulated medium for the propagation of light. It was invoked to explain the ability of the apparently wave-based light to propagate through empty space, something that waves should not be able to do. All right, so what they're saying is that light is behaving in a way that they haven't been able to explain, and so they wanted to see. Not only that, they wanted to see, is there a living universe? That's what ether is, the living aspect, the conscious aspect, the organizing mind of the universe. And so they were trying to do an experiment to see if that's what there was. You know, if that's the case, that's what we're dealing with. How is light able to move in these ways that aren't otherwise unexplainable, right? And so, like I said, they'll tell you that yes, in fact, it was failed. They weren't able to verify it or validate it, right? But then up in 1965 at the Weizmann Institute of Science, they replicated the experiment, right, with much finer equipment, you know. And so then in the 1990s, was it the 1998 February 26th Nature magazine? This one little bitty tiny paragraph was buried in the back of this Nature magazine, which is the abstract, which is what the findings were for that double slit experiment that was replicated at the Weizmann Institute, right? And so what they found is that we find that by varying the sensitivity, by using better equipment, the sensitivity detector, we can affect the visibility of the oscillatory interference signal, thereby verifying the complementary principle of the fermions. And so what they're saying is that they verified that there is in fact ether, you know, but they put it in the back of this magazine with no fanfare, no real talk about it, and just kind of let it go at that. All right, so there is ether. And what they're saying is it a pulse or is it a wave? They're saying that the observation of light determines its behavior. So if you are looking at it, it behaves one way. If you're not looking at it, it behaves another way. And what they were also saying is that that's just one version of what they were talking about. What they're also saying is that when they're observing the light, there is a level of randomness that isn't possible in randomness. That there is always going to be patterns that arise when you're looking at random numbers, random effects, random patterns, right? That they're always going to have patterns that come out of that. And when they were looking at the light, they found that the randomness was so random that the only way it could be that way is if it was intentionally doing that. And why would it be intentionally doing that? Is to show somebody that it was aware that it was being observed, right? And so it was saying, okay, I'm going to behave in a way that can only be explained by knowing that you're being observed, right? And so this light was acting consciously, and the scientists had no choice but to accept that reality, right? And then so then we go over to the what was called the vacuum DNA phantom effect, all right? And so what they did is they took a vacuum and they put light photons in it, and they excited it, and what they found is that it had like they assumed it would, you know, everything kind of evened out normally without anything in it. But then they put in the DNA, physical DNA, and they found that the light photons then organize themselves in that helix pattern of the DNA, right? And so they said, okay, when we take this DNA out, those light photons should go back to that original state of randomness, right, or just kind of saturation in the space. And when they took it out, they didn't. It maintained that DNA helix shape, and so that was contrary to what they expected, right? And so what they're saying is that we are forced to accept the possibility that some new field of energy, aether, is being excited by the DNA, right, in this experiment, and that ties us into the Michelson or the phantom or the double slit experiment. Is it a pulse? Is it a wave? And what it does is it marries the reality that our DNA influences and affects light and our environment. Light is our environment, frozen light, right? Material is just light that has been oscillated down to a slow enough state where it can become physical, right? Frozen light. And so, again, science and tradition. What's the point? The next video is going to be on the consciousness of water, and then after that we'll kind of tie it all together, because the point is, if we're looking at our everyday walk of life, our relationship with farming, agronomy, animal husbandry, mental health, biology, we've seen the value of consciousness and our relationship with nature only influencing for the better, right? And so let's take into account these things, and say that in business, for capitalism, we can't have the bottom line be all that matters. We have to have the human side of that, the consciousness side of that, and you don't have to be religious to want better things for your fellow brothers and sisters, and to have, like I said, to have a relationship in business, in the world, with our food, with our medicine, with electricity, with each other, that is inclusive and community based, right? And so again, I said the next video is going to be on the consciousness of water, and then we'll be going into temple farming and agronomy and bringing it all together. Again, I appreciate your time. Thank you. I hope.